This is just another piece of information of why Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn really, really suck. What is going on, YouTube, and welcome to Detroit Lions Talk with MicroMike. We talk all things Detroit Lions, news, rumors, analysis, breakdown, and everything regarding our franchise. In this video, we're going to be talking about PFF's top 50 players for this upcoming season and where the Detroit Lions, what players they have for us. And it's not going to be a fun one. It's going to be a little bit of a rant video because of the frustrations as a Lions fan. But before we get in this bad boy, hit that like button. Let's get to 200 likes in this video. Yes, it's going to be a little bit of rant. Yes, it's a little bit depressing, but the more likes we get, the more chance that this stuff gets out there. And hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so. About 102 away from 14K. With your help, we can get it done. Let's begin the rant. PFF released its top 50 players today, and you guessed it probably correctly that the Detroit Lions was completely shut out. Not a single player on this list. And you may be saying, man, PFF is completely garbage. They don't know what they're talking about. We got studs all over this team. Well, generally, when it comes to ratings, you look at it, a lot of things are biased, but in this case, I can kind of understand why. When you look at the top 50 players in this league, you look at the Travis Kelce's, the Aaron Rodgers, all these quality players. It's a little bit different from the top 100. This is their specific list, and the Lions were not a part of this list. Why is that? So many reasons of why the Detroit Lions were shut out, and we're going to get into it right now. First off, the Detroit Lions do have some quality players in this team, do have staples for this team. Not much, but we do have some staples. But we're going to talk about first of why we're in this predicament. We're in this predicament because of two individuals here, Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. They really decimated, defecated, desecrated the Detroit Lions roster from top to bottom to make it a bottom-feeding roster. And we got to look at how this occurred. Well, first off, you have to build your team through the draft. It's simple. You get quality players, and that's what you do. Hopefully, if you got top-end draft picks, you should be getting blue-chip players. But this was not the case for the Detroit Lions. We did get some good draft picks. Frank Ragnow, we're going to talk about him potentially being a top 50 player, and he's not put on this list. But you got to talk about the Jared Davises. You got to talk about players you missed in the second round. Obviously, Tease Tabers, right? We're talking about the Kerryon Johnsons of the world who did not help this roster. When you get bad draft picks and you miss out on it, it doesn't help your roster out because you're determined to at least get a blue chip player. Specifically, if you're, say, a top 3 draft pick, you need to get a blue chip player for your roster. It's important. You can't miss on these guys because they are the end-all, be-all for this roster, like the Ndamukong Suhs, who come on a team at the second draft pick and become a key cornerstone player for your roster. The Calvin Megatron Johnsons. That's what you need to find to get a team elevated with your blue chip prospects. Another reason why this has failed for the Lions. It's simple. Free agency was utter trash. You're talking about getting rid of players and bringing in bloated, insane contracts for the Trey Flowers, for the Big V's. And guess what? Yeah, you get a player, but it's not their pay range. And when you do get a quality player, you can't pay them because you invested money into free agency, into players over their contract that are not destined to be a blue chip player, ultimately hurting your team for the long run if you do develop a quality player. That's squarely on Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia for destroying this roster. Simply put, before Matt Patricia was here, though, Bob Quinn wasn't the worst GM. But ever since he came in here, these two decided to go on an insane tour and blow everything they got, blow it up for the Patriot way, and we end up looking like a sad franchise destroyed by utter incompetence. I really like likes, and so does Chat Sports. And they're always telling me, Mike, get your likes up. Why? Because they're very demanding in what they want. And the more likes we get, the more chance that I don't get berated by these guys, and this video can get out there. So let's get to 200 likes in this video. Show the world and show Chat Sports themselves that the One Pride is for real. And you don't have to be a team such as the Dallas Cowboys or the Raiders or the big-name teams out there to actually have a fan base, that the Detroit Lions does have a fan base, and we can make some noise. But was PFF right in this assessment? We do have some quality players here. Obviously, you see TJ Hawkinson. He's developed. He's going to be a very good player in this league. And in my opinion, it's right for him not to be on the top 50 list right now, because last year, with the lack of targets, he should be getting more. It's important for him to be elevated to that number one tight end spot like the Kelce's of the world, but last year he definitely didn't prove it, and it's got to be a prove-it season for him to be on this list. We already know he's extremely talented, and in my opinion, he's definitely a blue-chip tight end player for the Lions, and you're going to see Jared Goff give him that list. And I think next year you could potentially see TJ Hawkinson on the top 50 list per PFF, and great chance top 100 for the NFL.com's list. But it is, in my opinion, worthy for not him being on this list right now. What about Frank Ragnow? Frank Ragnow potentially could have been on this list as a top 50 player, no doubt about it. For the Detroit Lions, he could have been the one guy that should have made this list. But again, it's a little bit of pick and choose, and when you have such a bad reputation as Detroit, I get the concept of him not being on this list, but he could have been there. But I'm not angry that he's not, because of the lack of talent just all the way around, the incompetence that this franchise has had. So I'm not going to complain and say this isn't utterly insane, because it's not really utterly insane. If you look at the top-end players, again, we look at the Aaron Rodgerses of the world, the Patrick Mahomes, the players that really changed the game, and not necessarily going to see all these offensive linemen on there or a center on there. You know, you're going to have more of the quarterbacks. You're going to have more of the wide receivers or a defensive end, someone that is more recognizable than a center in this league. Is there any other players that potentially could have been in this list? Not really. No, not really. And that's sad, because if you look at the defense, who on there is a standout on defense? No one. No one. When your defense was as bad as it was last year due to terrible leadership, you can't put really one on there. We had free agency leave. We had the Kenny Galladay's leave, Marvin Jones Jr.'s leave. Not saying that they're a top 50 player. Probably, Kenny Galladay could have been up there very close, but maybe not. Marvin Jones Jr. But when you have players like that, it does elevate other players around you. Could have Matthew Stafford been on there for the Detroit Lions? Probably not, no. I wouldn't consider him a top 50 player from last year to elevate him if he decided not to get traded. Is Jared Goff there? No, I'm not going to put Jared Goff as a top 50 player for the Detroit Lions. So to me, it's justified of what occurred. Can this problem be fixed? Absolutely it can be fixed, and it's going to get fixed. And there's multiple reasons how this can be implemented, but it first starts with the culture change that is taking place right now. There's nothing that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell could have done in 1 year to completely flip this thing upside down. It's just impossible with the lack of draft picks, with the lack of bloated contracts that was on this team. It was pushing a giant boulder over Mount Everest for year one. With that said, you can see the building blocks right now for the Detroit Lions of this potentially getting fixed. You're not going to throw the rookies that we drafted this year on a top 50 list of the NFL. But if you look at the Penei Sewell, he's definitely outlook like he could be a player that's extremely on the rise, and you'll see him on a list going forward. Levi Onwuzurike, he was one of the best defensive tackles in this year's draft. One or two, just depending on who you look at. He has a very high ceiling going forward. Amon-Ra St. Brown. With the draft picks that we got here, you can see the building blocks of the future. And then you look at next year's draft with all the draft picks. We're going to have 2 first-round picks, couple third-round draft picks. That is how you elevate the roster. You find these players who it doesn't necessarily have to be in the first round, second, third, players who's a building block and that can elevate that roster and bring it up there. So you can see if the Detroit Lions draft well, like they did this last year's draft. Folks, you need to subscribe to the channel. We're literally about 102 away from hitting 14,000 subscribers, and with your help, we can get it done. Just a couple years ago, I had 0. And the movement began of getting Detroit Lions content on via social sites such as YouTube. And with your help, we can continue to get this information out there. Hit that subscribe button. Yeah, it definitely could be fixed. And the culture change from the head coach, motivating the players and making these players perform to the max capability that they can get to by Dan Campbell and his coaching staff in this regime all around, it definitely can be fixed. And there is definitely solutions to this problem. I honestly think that the future is extremely bright for the Detroit Lions. And I'm not just talking about this year. I'm talking about years to come. Because I think this team is going to be a 6-win football team. But if you look at the leadership that we currently have, we're talking from Sheila Ford Hamp all the way down to Chris. We're talking all the way down to Brad and all the way to Dan and his coaching tree of former players. The lights of Detroit seems to be bright, and we're going in the right direction. Players that potentially could be on it next year. I would definitely say Frank Ragnow. He's probably going to be on that list next year. Again, you look at the players that we drafted in Penei Sewell, maybe not next year, potentially could be the year following that, but you see the blocks of the players getting elevated and what this means for our team, and it definitely looks good. But right now, when you see this, blame Quinn-Patricia for this garbage roster that they left Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. In the upcoming videos, we got the live One Pride podcast on my channel every single Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a panel on there. It's a fun, interactive show. If you got questions, we definitely have some answers. Come and enjoy the fun. And on Sunday, generally around 11 in the morning, I do a live Q&A just myself, giving back to the subscribers that can generally not make it during the weekday/weeknight on Thursdays. So it gives you a chance to ask anything you want to ask, and we will get it done and bring you the content that you like.